Today we're going to tell you how to kill your Dynasty startup draft. We're going to go through a startup that we recently did. We're going to go through round by round, talk about the ADP. Then we're going to give you some tips on how you should be killing your Dynasty startups. You'll want to stick around for this video. There are some really helpful tips, and if you're drafting any drafts in Fantasy or Dynasty this offseason, you're going to want to hear these tips. So make sure you stick around. Make sure you like this video, and make sure you're subscribed. We're trying to get to 3K this week. Hopefully we're already there, but we're trying to get to 3K, so make sure you're subscribed as well. We've got a lot going on. Make sure you're subscribed to Fantasy Domain. That's where we're going to be transitioning as we get closer to the season. That's where we're going to be posting our videos, so make sure you're subscribed to Fantasy Domain as well. We've got memberships now on our YouTube, and our top-tier membership allows you to get your Dynasty team graded on our channel by Nathan and I. So make sure you go sign up for that as well. We also get our rankings, our ADP, and access to our Discord. And then we've got merch in the shop, so make sure you go check out the merch. Make sure you check out Fozzie Football as well. It's paper football, but 1,000 times better. They've partnered with us. You can use code DOMAIN to get access to that as well. And today, like I said, we're going to be talking Dynasty startups. Dynasty startups. Like, I don't know if there is a better feeling in my life, and I mean this, than when I'm doing a Dynasty startup. Like, there are a lot of great things in my life. Like, I have a dog and a wife, but I would tell my wife that Dynasty startups are probably just as good as being married. And so I wouldn't actually say that to my wife, and I don't mean it, but she doesn't watch our videos, so she's not going to know. So I guess I can say whatever I want, right? But when you're talking about Dynasty startups, obviously one of the most fun thing to do in the offseason. And how do you do well in those Dynasty startups? We're going to look at one today. We recently did this mock draft with some of our Domain Discord members collecting ADP data. Let's go ahead and look at the ADP. Starting in the first round, you have the top 4 wide receivers off the board. Again, this is going to be mainly where you get these wide receivers, these quarterbacks, and then Bijan Robinson, who in this draft goes at the 1-9. So we've seen Bijan go as high as this. We've seen Jalen Hurts go as high as the 1-1 in these drafts. So Jalen Hurts is pretty... I'm surprised he went... Every time I try to get Jalen Hurts, I just can't get him. So, I mean, I guess I just won't draft him. But Trevor Lawrence is up here in the top as well. We've got Justin Fields at the 1-11, which we will not comment on at all. But... that first round, normally in this first round, like I said, when you're in Dynasty Superflex leagues, you are trying to get a quarterback or Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, and I guess now we can put Bijan in that conversation, wouldn't you say? I mean, I think coming out of the first round with Bijan, if you're at the end, is fair.
Feeling good about it.
Yeah,
and honestly...
We like Bijan. Some dude said we were too high on Bijan. I was like,
no.
Us? No. We're not too high.
No. With the way that we expect the running back market next season to sway back to where it probably should be, yes. Bijan is probably even going to go up in ADP a little bit. So now, where he's going anywhere from the 1-9 to as late as a 201, like, that's going to be good value for him.
Absolutely, and you can take the second round here. Again, this is where we start to get more wide receivers and running backs off the board, but we have some good quarterback value, honestly, sprinkled in here, and especially in the middle of the second round.
Yeah. I think Anthony Richardson at the 2-2 is becoming more commonplace in the Dynasty community. I think while we advise that you be cautious, people aren't being cautious with Justin Fields. And from a market value perspective, like, they're both going very close to each other because both of them pretty much have as much to prove as the other. So honestly, if you want to take one over the other, I guess take the guy that has a better situation potentially. And I don't really, I guess now I wouldn't say from a market value perspective I have a problem with Anthony Richardson going in the early second. I would just be cautious if you're viewing him as a long-term cornerstone quarterback that you want to have on your roster. Like, if you get a haul of an offer for him, like, I would go ahead and take that offer, honestly.
I mean, I paid Anthony Richardson, like Mark Andrews and Treylon Burks, for Jalen Hurts and Drake London. So I traded away. It was my only A-Rich share. And you have to understand, he's my favorite player of all time already. And I traded him. I don't have any shares.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how high his value is getting right now. Yeah. So
the other guys like Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray, some of our favorite values right now, both have long-term contracts, some of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. And now they're falling to the middle of the second round because Deshaun Watson, after not playing the football in 2 seasons, all of a sudden sucks. And now Kyler Murray, who tore his ACL, all of a sudden sucks as well, apparently.
And if Nathan wouldn't have taken Kyler Murray here,
he would have fallen to the late second.
I saw on a vlog video him go in the 4th round. Kyler.
Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable.
I mean, that's unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Like, that should get you kicked out. Everybody.
Like, legit, I would consider it.
But again, you're right. With Kyler Murray, with Bryce Young, with all these guys, it's going to be some really good values here.
Yeah.
And I think one of our number one rules, especially when a lot of people are going to ask, especially when you're in these first 2 rounds, should I be drafting contender or should I be drafting rebuild? And the answer is always
neither. or both. Actually, if you just want to say it either way, take the value that falls.
There you go.
Take the value that
Draft
falls.
value.
Don't go into a draft thinking I'm going to draft a contender. I'm going to draft a rebuild or a productive struggle, because if you do that and you're determined to draft those types of players or those types of assets in Dynasty, you will be sacrificing value, which means you will not be maximizing the value that you could have on your team. You're not creating insulated value. You're not creating contender value on your team to make trades, to make deals, to do whatever you want to do with your team during the offseason. Most startups in Dynasty happen way early in the offseason. So why are you worrying about being a contender or a rebuild now? You have no idea what the season's going to look like. You have no idea what your team's going to look like come August. Yeah. So take value. Value is key in Dynasty.
Absolutely. And moving down to the third round here, Travis Kelce at the 3-1. We'll talk about that. But Jalen Waddle actually slid down to the 3-2 as good value. And Chris Olave, Saquon Barkley went up a little bit earlier in this draft at the 3-4. You had two tight ends in Kyle Pitts and Travis Kelce go in this round. JSN went at the 3-6. We had a Stephon Diggs. Those were our picks. And then you had a running back with Eckler, Cooper Kupp at the end, T. Higgins at the end, CJ Stroud. Really good value there at the end of the third on CJ Stroud, a guy who's rumored to be doing very well in team training, which it does not surprise me at all. But when you're talking about tight ends especially, like the third, fourth, fifth round is where you're going to want to grab your elite tight end. So as I go into this third, fourth round, a lot of times that's where I'm looking at. Like, okay, where's Mark Andrews? Where's Travis Kelce? Where's Kyle Pitts? And the reason is a rule that we absolutely live by in startups. If you're not getting one of these elite tight ends in your startups, completely forget it. Like, I mean, don't draft Pat P.
Drafting tight ends.
Don't draft Dalton Kincaid even. Don't draft Darren Waller. Don't draft Sam Laporta, Evan Ingram.
In the 9th round.
Like I'm going to look and you scroll down in these dynasties. So we only did 15 rounds here. But honestly, like on these teams, I'd rather have...
I would rather wait and draft Dawson Knox than get Pat P in the 7th round.
Yeah, I mean, and Dawson Knox is...
You legitimately go watch our video where we talked about how elite tight ends win you dynasty or fantasy and dynasty championships and how everyone else outside of the top 6 doesn't. There's no rhyme or rhythm to who wins you what past the top 6. So legit, like if you don't get an elite tight end doesn't matter. Like they're not going to contribute to you winning championships.
Tyler Higbee in the 20th round. Like Hayden Hurst last year was a waiver wire pickup.
Tyler Higbee in the 20th round is a better value than Michael Mayer.
And Greg Dulcich in the 11th round.
Yeah,
like it
because
just is.
They'll both equally impact the success of your fantasy team.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you're looking at the rest of this round, obviously the QB run in a Superflex league is going to happen in the first 2 rounds. You only have one QB going off the board here in CJ Stroud. Really good value there as well. Jameer Gibbs is going in this round. Loved the Jameer Gibbs pick in the 3rd round. I think he's a very good value. I think JSN's also a very good value. Lots of getting into the higher points scoring receivers and running backs now. These are guys that are probably going to win you championships. And looking down into the 4th round, you have that as well. 2 more elite tight ends, Mark Andrews and T.J. Hockenson. So these are also going to be some targets here. Nick Chubb goes in the 4th, so that's really early for Nick Chubb compared to where we've seen him go. But
usually goes in the 6th.
But we like Nick Chubb. You look at Drake London. I took him in the middle of the 4th. I think this is a little bit far for Drake London to fall. Tua's going in the mid-4th. Great quarterback value if you're getting Tua there as well. And then Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston both sliding in at the end of this round. That's pretty high. People will definitely learn their lesson after taking, when it was Chris Olave and J-Mo and Traylon all in the 7th, 8th round last year. Like, J-Mo didn't even do anything and he's up 3 rounds. People are learning their lesson.
Yeah, and going into the 5th and the 6th round here, kind of want to look at it collectively because I think this is one big fat tier. You have kind of the remaining significant dynasty value quarterbacks in a super flex league. Like this is where you're looking to get that. If you haven't gotten a second one yet, you're going to want to get a second one here. And then a lot of wide receivers, a lot of great values at the wide receiver position and a lot of crap values here at the wide receiver position. And you want to navigate that and you want to be careful here. So, I mean, I'm looking at guys like Michael Pittman and Deebo Samuel and even Treylon Burks, who are some of the best wide receiver values in Dynasty right now, who are not being drafted at their ceiling.
Chris Godwin even in the 6th.
Chris Godwin, one of our eternal buys in Dynasty. He will never not be a good value and a good buy.
He's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, period.
Yeah. If anyone's taking a hit in that offense, it's going to be Mike Evans. Chris Godwin's going to get every valuable target there.
Yep.
And then you have guys like Calvin Ridley, who's being pushed up because of situation, who's being pushed up because of what he did multiple years ago, even though he hasn't played football in 2 years. People just think he's going to magically come back and be the Calvin Ridley of old. And at 29 years old, I just have some big questions about that, especially after seeing the quick downfall of Michael Thomas in recent years. Yes, the situation was different. Yes, Michael Thomas struggled with injury, but really, when you think about it, I mean, Christian Kirk is already in that offense producing as a wide receiver one. How much is Ridley going to be able to do? Christian Watson's another guy that we're not very high on from the wide receiver position. He's potentially not even the wide receiver one in his own offense with the drafting of Jaden Reed. I know you kind of questioned that a little bit. I kind of questioned a little bit. There's definitely a possibility that Christian Watson outproduces everyone in that offense. I wouldn't be shocked if that happens, but there's just too many questions with Christian Watson. I don't think he can go much higher than this from here on out, at least for the foreseeable future, until we see what Jordan Love's going to be. Then you look at the QBs, Goff, Pickett, Cousins, and I would even throw in Lance here, and Geno is starting to be pushed up boards as well, going as high as the 6th, mainly the 7th. These are the guys that you're going to want to be targeting. They have quarterback one upside, I'd say, with the exception of Pickett, and they're just being shorted because of their age and their contract situation and the fact that their teams don't make the playoffs every single year. So everyone always thinks the NFL is going to want to move on from these guys, when in reality, not every team can have Patrick Mahomes, and a lot of teams have to settle with the mediocre quarterbacks in Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins from a talent perspective, and they can actually have success. They can. It's happened before. Look at Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers. Don't expect these guys to leave these teams anytime soon. We want it to happen every year, and it doesn't, and you're missing out on value, and you're missing out on fantasy points.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the last thing you can take away from these rounds, and this is going to be an important strategy point, when you're taking running backs in dynasty startups, don't take the running backs that are old, that are being valued at their ceiling. And this doesn't happen a lot, but when you have guys that have been in the league for multiple years, guys like Ramondre Stevenson, but ultimately guys like Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is a guy that there's pretty much zero chance he goes up in ADP.
Yeah.
So why would you, I mean, is he really going to pay off that much? Like, is he really going to score more than what he did last year at 15 points per game, 16 points per game? Probably not. So why would you do that? He's the ultimate sell in Dynasty right now. We're going to stand by it. The 5'10", I mean, look, if you're building your Dynasty team and you're drafting here in the 5th round, why would you want to build your team around Tony Pollard instead of even like a Christian Watson, who we're not that high on? George Kittle, who's an elite tight end who people love to fade. Chris Godwin. Why? I mean, Chris Godwin, guys, like a quarterback, Kenny Pickett, Jared Goff, Zay Flowers, a guy with a first round wide receiver, one of the best investments in Dynasty. And we're taking Tony Pollard here. This is the anti-Tony Pollard channel. Honestly, I could not care less. Like, I mean, it is fabulous. But at the same time, we genuinely are like pleading with you. There are such better picks in the 5th round. Michael Pittman's there half the time. Jerry Jeudy's there half the time. Deebo Samuel, Treylon Burks, Najee Harris. If those guys are there, I mean, you're taking them all day. So with those guys, don't take them. Take elite producing old running backs that value, who their value is already fallen.
It's already fallen more than it, like from an amount perspective, from like 1 year to the next. Their plummet has already occurred. They will continually decrease in value, but it will never be as great as the fall that has already occurred with them. And they're going to keep scoring the same amount of fantasy points. So why not do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we're going to move down to the 7th and 8th round here. And look, when you're talking about this, a lot of times if you're only getting one quarterback up at the top of these drafts, this is where you're getting your second quarterback. And you see a lot of this is going to be red, a lot of red at the top, not a ton of red in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, and then you get down to the 7th and 8th rounds, and it's going to be a lot of red again. People are getting their second quarterbacks. You're talking about second quarterbacks. You're talking about Trey Lance winning this, Derek Carr, Geno Smith, Brock Purdy, Will Levis, Russell Wilson, Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers. And this is a really good place, honestly, to just completely load up at wide receiver, tight end, and running back in those middle rounds, and then sandwich them with a quarterback on each side. You have an elite quarterback you can build your dynasty team around for years and years, and then you have a quarterback that's going to produce at a high level, at least for the next few years. Guys like Geno Smith, you know he's got some short-term value at least. Jared Goff, Russell Wilson's on a big contract. Aaron Rodgers is going to play for a couple more years. So that's kind of what you're doing in these 7th and 8th rounds. Outside of that, you mainly see either getting, some supplemental running backs or wide receivers. Guys like Marquise Brown, Deontay Johnson, Brandon Ayuk, Amari Cooper. There's target hogs that are being shorted for one reason or another. I mean, you're getting Amari Cooper in the 8th round. you kidding me? Deontay Johnson, he's getting so many targets in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and Trey Lance going at the 7-1 is just a great example of a a piece of advice that we've lived by, that piece of advice that we've given ourselves. But value is greater than personal opinion, guys.
Yes.
It is always greater than personal opinion. I cannot stand Trey Lance as a talent. I was not high on him when he was drafted. I was not high on him into the process of going into last season when he was supposed to be the starter and then he got injured. I don't think he's going to be a successful quarterback in the NFL long term. And but when you're looking at where he's going now compared to where he was going previously, being easily a top 12 quarterback in Dynasty last season, and now he's fallen to quarterback 20 on keep, trade, cut, or whatever he is now in the 7th round, they are going to have to start him. San Francisco is going to have to start him at some point, or they're going to have to get a haul when someone trades for him, and he will get an opportunity elsewhere. He has barely played, and his draft capital guarantees that he gets opportunities in San Francisco and elsewhere in the future. Look at Sam Darnold. Look at Baker Mayfield. And those guys, those teams that drafted them to begin with didn't have to pay 3 first-round picks to get Trey Lance. So technically, Trey Lance is more valuable than those guys, and he's played less, and he's going to get more opportunity. He will have another spike in value. So take him now while everyone else is low on him, while everyone else's personal opinion is scared of him. And then once their personal opinion is higher than what the value should be, that's when you ship him off.
Yeah, absolutely. And coupling this with the 9th and 10th rounds as well as we'll move on to those, one thing you shouldn't be doing here is drafting running backs who are young but haven't proven they can produce yet. Because if they're going in the 8th round, there are obviously serious red flags for them. We're talking about Dameon Pierce, Rashad White, Cam Akers, Isaiah Pacheco. These guys, unless they're rookies like Kendre Miller and Zach Charbonnet, or they're tiny like Devon Achane and not going to do anything, they're not guys you should be. I don't know why we're taking Cam Akers here, Rashad White, Dameon Pierce. I mean, you really think that their value is going to be more insulated than a Christian Kirk? Christian Kirk was a guy who was a wide receiver 1 last year, and he just went after freaking Cam Akers.
Mike Williams. Take Aaron Jones and take James Conner.
I'm getting agitated.
And wait and get them later. Aaron Jones and James Conner are going to continue to put up fantasy points for you. Everyone's going to assume they're going to plummet in value when they already have. Dalvin Cook. And Dalvin Cook is going to keep falling.
Honestly, even in the 10th round, take James Cook instead of those guys. I mean, from an opportunity standpoint alone, although James Cook is mid, he's going to be on a good offense.
Talk about a guy where you look past your personal opinion of him.
I mean, he's
and
like
look
our
at the
least
value.
favorite dynasty player, and we'll take him. I mean, I took him.
Yeah. There's a good value there.
Outside of that, though, when you're talking about the 9th, 10th rounds, you're going to talk about wide receivers like Josh Downs, younger wide receivers. But you also have the guys like Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, the old veterans, Mike Williams, that are still. I don't understand why Christian Kirk is in this conversation. He should not be this low.
Yep.
But
and this again. This is a big chunk here because you're starting to get to the ADP is almost irrelevant range from rounds 10 to 12. And I want you to be wary of the guys that move up draft boards for literally no reason. So guys like Elijah Moore who fell for good reason and now they're rising for no good reason.
Yeah.
And guys like Evan Ingram, who did not get a contract. Honestly, I'm a little bit reluctant to take him as well, especially with them just constantly adding receivers. And while I'm not high on Calvin Ridley, that's probably going to hurt Evan Ingram's stock a little bit, or it should in Dynasty. I want to take the few quarterbacks that are left. I want to take the Mac Jones in the 11th round. That's a great value. I want to take the Jimmy Garoppolo in the 13th round. Even honestly, at this point, Desmond Ridder, we've been notably low on him, but he will be the starting quarterback for the Falcons this season, and he'll probably go up in value once he starts scoring fantasy points, and by then I'll just want to ship him off. So that's a decent investment there in the 12th round. Those are the guys that I'm looking at for sure that I'm just more confident in. The Roshan Johnson for the Chicago Bears, not Khalil Herbert, but don't take tight ends here. Wait until the 20th round.
I'm going to say that anything after the 6th round when Goddard goes, be done. Be done. You're not taking Darren Waller over Marquise Brown. You're not taking Dalton Kincaid over Brandon Ayuk. You're not doing it.
You can start Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna give you just as good a chance to win. It legitimately will. We actually studied it.
Yep.
But talking about the 11th and 12th round still, lots of tight ends, shouldn't be taking them. Lots of running backs that honestly are decent values here. You're talking about guys like A.J. Dillon, who was overvalued last year, but this year, he produced a little bit last year. Might be worth a shot in these rounds. David Montgomery, who's going to be a viable option to score in Detroit as well. We're not drafting Chigokonkwo. Tyler Lockett continues to go in the 11th round. We think JSN is the wide receiver 1 in that offense. We think DK is probably going to be the wide receiver 2, but still, there's going to be a lot of volume to go around there, lots of plays to be made, and I think Tyler Lockett will slide into that as well. But honestly, it's just, you get down here, it's a whole lot of gross, and the only thing you can do at this point, I think, is to either take players that have produced and proven they can produce, like Tyler Lockett, guys like, looking for another one here,
Adam Thielen.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. The proven old guys or the rookie wide receivers.
Yep.
This is something that we've definitely found after the 12th round. Don't worry about the positions that you think you're desperate for or that you think you need. At that point, you just want as high a chance as possible to have insulated value that's going to increase over the offseason. And there's no better opportunity than the rookie wide receivers who have 3rd, 4th, 5th round draft capital. You can just keep taking them. And those guys are going to, at least some of them are going to go up in value. You can ship them off in the offseason, you can package them together, and you can get the assets that you're going to need going into the season.
Absolutely. And looking at the last 3 rounds here, this is when, again, we're taking the productive guys, and we're taking the guys that are either A-prime to increase in value big time this season or have a really good chance of that, or be their rookies. So when you're talking about who we're taking here, you're looking at guys like Jamal Williams was a guy I took, a guy I think could be really productive this year, so I'm taking a shot on him over, but you also have guys like Sky Moore, Jalen Wyatt, Alec Pierce.
Jalen Hyatt.
I know. Even Rashid Shaheed went here too. Did I say Jalen Wyatt?
Yeah.
I know his name, I swear. Jalen Hyatt. Gabe Davis in the 13th. I'll take Gabe
solid,
Davis in the 13th.
solid value.
He's
kind of fallen a little bit, little too much.
I wonder if it's
fallen a little too much.
But and then outside of that, when we're looking in these rounds, like I said, we're going for value, we're going for production, and there's a lot of different routes you could take, but a lot of times you just end up completely wasting your picks in these rounds when you look at them a year later. I've seen that on a lot of my personal teams, and really the only way to avoid that is to insulate your value, draft rookies, especially rookie wide receivers. They're going to be the best investment. And remember, when we're looking at these drafts, the number one rule is take the value that falls. Value is greater than personal opinion. Always. It always is. So make sure that you are not basing all your drafts on your personal opinion. Make sure you diversify as well as you do more drafts. It's going to give you a higher chance of winning at least one of your leagues as you diversify. If you know anything about investing, it's the more you diversify, the less risk your portfolio has. It's the same thing in Dynasty. It's the exact same thing. So make sure you're doing that if you're doing multiple drafts as well. But that's going to wrap this on up. And, like I said, there's a lot of big announcements going on right now. Make sure you subscribe to the Fantasy Domain. We've got that linked in our video description as well. We've got merch, so go check that out in the shop. We've got members now. We can grade your Dynasty team, so make sure you join the Domain S tier today to have your team graded. Make sure you check out Fozzie Football. Use code DOMAIN to get a discount on that. It's a really fun game. You should really check it out. It's a really cool tailgating game. And what am I missing? Am I missing anything?
New merch.
I said new merch.
You did?
Yeah.
That's it, man. You're good.
I'm trying to remember all this week. So, all right. Make sure you like the video. That's what I'm forgetting. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Really helps us out. It's free. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you later.